Dave Ramsey's great, but he's very, very, very wrong on the advice that he's giving you about digital currency. This is what he said. Take a listen.
It's a whole new place you could get canceled if you didn't meet the
there'd be a revolt.
You didn't meet the woke criteria or whatever, right? And so that would be a problem. If your dollar's freaking got canceled, that's a whole different thing. So if that got to that point, then I think long before then we would have fired a bunch of people. And Americans just don't tolerate being controlled for very long, with rare exceptions.
We're stubborn like that.
With rare exceptions. Sometimes we're sheeple, and we all go into our houses for 90 days and wait on a virus to pass. But other than that, we very seldom are controlled. Most of the time, we don't do what we're told. And so, which is good. Even if you disagree with me, you shouldn't have to do what you're told. That's called like freedom and stuff. So anyway, that's the downside of this thing that everybody's moaning about.
But the implications are, I'm not losing sleep over this. I'm not going to bed worried at night about what if centralized banking and digital dollars and cashless society. This usually turns into fear-mongering from the media and paranoia.
Here's the weird thing. The faster you can transfer funds, the more freedom you have. The more robust an economy is, the more freedom you have. The easier you can do a transaction, the more transactions occur, the more prosperity you can endure, and the more freedom you have. So the first part of this discussion, this ease of transfer and the shortening of the hold periods and all that, because they're updating the antiquated system, is going to add way more freedoms than the little corner of the digital dollars might try to take away. So the net on it, I think, is going to be extremely positive. Although I'm not a big fan of the Fed and I'm not a defender of the Fed, I'm certainly, for you bozos on Twitter, not a shill of the Fed, just to let you know.
Nope. No. Love Dave Ramsey, but this is very bad advice that he's giving. He says we are an independent people. That's actually not true. I know this sounds very cynical, but we are not an independent people. We are not independent-minded people anymore. Our society as a whole right now, we used to be independent. One of the characteristics of the American people was that we embraced rugged individualism. That was something we were proud of, something I wish that still identified us, but we actually aren't an independent people anymore. Instead of rugged individualism, the youngest generations now, Gen Z and then millennials, and I know millennials are reaching middle age, but they're still considered to be on the younger end of voters, in the workforce as well. Gen Z and millennials are characterized often by collectivist, dependent, groupthink attitudes. We are not a people who rejects being told what to do. And of course, COVID-19 is the best example of this, when everyone just immediately locked down. They didn't go anywhere. They were wiping down their groceries with Lysol wipes. They were wearing cloth masks with tons of holes in them. They were taking umpteen boosters of a vaccine that, obviously they didn't push back against these government lockdowns, even as their businesses were destroyed, their livelihoods were completely decimated. We are not an independent-minded people. All of that information that contradicted what the government was doing to us in the name of COVID was readily available. There were studies on masks, there were studies on the transmission of the virus, there were studies on who was vulnerable to it, there were studies on vaccines, there were studies on social distancing, there were studies on the societal harm of lockdowns. That was all readily available to anybody at anyone's fingertips on the internet, where everyone was while they were locked down, and still people were not courageous enough to be independent-minded. I wish we were an independent people, and we need to restore that character quality in our people, but we are not an independent people any longer. We are characterized by groupthink. I mean, look at the transgender ideology, for example. How many people use neopronouns? How many people are willing to indulge someone else using neopronouns? How many people in our country are willing to buy into critical race theory? And I know critical race theory has been largely, we've pushed back against it. There's been a lot of people that have pushed back against it, but there's been an equal number of people who haven't. The American people, I'm proud to be an American. I love the American people, but we are in a phase right now where we need to reclaim this independent attitude. It is not a small risk. The central bank digital currency, this idea of basically a Bitcoin run by the federal government, a Fed coin, if you will, it does not pose a small risk to us. It poses almost an existential risk to our nation. And I know that word existential sounds very hyperbolic, but if you understand the reality of who's behind a Fed coin and what it is that our government officials right now in the Joe Biden administration want to force us to do, how they want to reorganize our society and socially engineer us. And then you understand the people who are influencing the Biden administration, the people in the World Economic Forum, for example, what their goals for the American people are, and what they're using, the tools, the ESG tools, and yes, the digital currency tools, the social credit score systems that they're using to try to socially engineer the United States, then you understand that a central bank digital currency is not a small risk, that it's a way for the federal government to say, you know what, Joe, I don't want you to buy a gun, so I'm going to limit what you're allowed to use the Fed coin on. I'm not going to let you buy a gun. And Susie, I think that you should donate more of your money to transgender activism. I see that you have instead donated to a conservative organization that stands for science, that stands for traditional scientific, biological, religious understandings, reality-based definitions of man and woman. So I'm going to put a hold on that and penalize you for not taking more social responsibility. This is just a tiny example. Think about what Justin Trudeau did in Canada to anybody that donated, not even participated in, but donated to those Freedom Trucker Convoy people. He froze their bank accounts. You think that, and this is a Western country, this is Canada, this isn't even China that we're talking about. You think that won't happen here if the government is in control of the Fed coin? Look at the January 6th defendants. The January 6th defendants have actually had banks call them and their family members and debank them. That means the bank has told them that if you don't remove all of your money, all of your assets from our banking institution in 30 days, you're going to forfeit it. We're going to take it. They have debanked them, kicked them out of the bank. Do you think that the federal government, the Fed, won't do that if they have control, online control over your money in the form of a Fed coin? The Chinese social credit score system that we always talk about, where the Chinese people are rated by the government based on their quote unquote communist behavior. And they, of course, in China view that word communist as good. But if you don't do what the Chinese government wants you to do, the Chinese government docks your social credit score. If you speak out against the Chinese government on social media, for example, you have your credit score docked. If your credit score is docked, you may not be able to buy an airline ticket. You may not be able to get a good paying job. You may not be able to buy a house. You may not be able to send your child to a private school. You are socially ostracized. You are marginalized by this government through this social credit score system. That's what central bank digital currency is. That's exactly what it is. It's the mechanism that is coming to the United States that's going to be the equivalent of a social credit score system. And the people running that system are not people that like us. They're not people that like Christian values. They're not people that like conservative politics. They're not people who base their reality in both science and natural law. These are radical leftists, and that's the nice version of the term. They're neo-Marxists. This is an extremely dangerous thing. And by the way, when I'm saying this is not speculation. This is not my opinion. You can watch this playing out all around the world. Our currency and the fact that we have a fiat currency backed by the full faith of the federal government, even though we no longer have a gold standard, the fact that we have the currency that we have gives us our standing in the world. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.